Good day. So good to have you here on Leadership TV. This is a program inside Nigeria where we dissect the trending stories on our national dailies. I am Cynthia Onwado. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin, of course, with Leadership newspaper here. The major headline says FG issues flood alerts to 15 northern states. All right, it will do them well to take note of this warning from the federal government. Also, Abbas leads presidential committee to mend cracks in Bauchi APC. Dangote refinery receives CNG trucks for fuel distribution initiative, and that's on page 27. And down below, NYSC Atiku, others disagree over core members' service extension. You can check out that story on page 6. And also, Fayemi denies joining ADC, says he remains in APC. Also, down below the masthead, NUC begins review of private varsity regulations. All right. Also, we see above the newspaper headline, Abasanjo Library threatens legal action after EFCC arrested 93 at hotel. Soaring energy costs push small businesses towards extension. And also on the fact check, did Ambode declare another governorship ambition? All right. Disco gets deadline to restore power supply to Ekiti community. That's on page 2. It will do you well to check out also page 3, which is our standard editorial written on nuclear reactor on the moon. All right, you may want to check that out. And let's take a look at our back page. It looks at the Monday column with Dakoku Peterside. Of course, he wrote on the pre-2027 party gold rush. All right, he talks about the current rush to establish new parties, looking at it being less about ideological convictions or grassroots movement and more about strategic positioning and transactional gains. Let's take a look at Ghana Must Go. Of course, there's always something fun here. It says, if I get ADC ticket, I'll defeat Tinubu. Expose how APC rigs election, says Amechi. All right, let's wait and see. And the response says, this your mouth. All right, 2027 comes with its own abracadabra and all sort of strategies. All right, moving on now from Leadership newspaper, let's check out The Guardian. All right, the major headline on The Guardian says congestions. Okay, let's take a beginning from Broad Street to Atlantic City. Congestion, asset depreciation push HNI's businesses to Echo Atlantic City. Okay, we get to see a picture of a plot of land in Echo Atlantic, which is valued at about, or rather was valued at about 280 million in the early 2000s, and now it's over 2 billion naira. Okay, still on The Guardian, US condemns killing of Christians in Nigeria, vows decisive action. That's on page 3. Also on The Guardian, landmark vaccine trial raises hope for cancer patients. All right, Biodun Daniel Beaker over demolition notices on property. New Constitution, Senate welcomes recommendations at public hearing. Also, Atiku Falono kick as NYSC defense withheld certificate. EFCC raids hotel in Obasanjo Library. Management threatens lawsuit. And finally, cracks widen in ADC coalition as Shekarau allies consider new platform. All right, so we're seeing the race towards 2027, and of course, new political parties and coalitions rising left to right center. Moving on now to This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper major headline here says Lagos got 58.5% of electronic money transfer levy in June. Okay, to cut costs, FG launches 100 billion naira initiative to power public institutions with solar energy. Also above the masthead, NEPC, Nigeria's non-oil exports rose 19.5%, hit $3.22 billion in HI of 2025. Also on the foreign scene, it says Zelensky wins EU NATO backing, sixth place at proposed Trump-Putin talks, looking at a solution to the Russia-Ukraine war. And finally, on this day, rather it says Niger inaugurates largest shea butter plant in Africa. All right, moving on now from this day, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. The Nigerian Tribune major headline says Senate factors to consider before approving new states. 61 requests received. All right, there are 61 requests right now for the creation of 61 new states. Let's wait and see where that would lead to. Also above the masthead, banditry, police deploy squad to Kwara community. 2027 PDP may unveil zoning formula August 25th. Diri's ad hoc committee to meet this week. Serap, NGESU Niger Governor MBC over Badegi FM. 2027 Niger Delta will support only Tinubu, says the PAP boss. Okay, strike. Health workers to get 7 months salary arrears by August end, says the federal government. I hope they live up to those promises. Still on health, exercise can help fight breast cancer. You may check that out on the page 4. Obasanjo Library condemns invasion of hotel by EFCC, considers legal option. Release LG funds, Osun government tells federal government again. All right, moving away from the Nigerian Tribune, let's check out the Punch. The major headline says states hit by 68% spike in foreign debt payments. Debt servicing threatens states' fiscal stability, says the NEITI. Lagos, Rivers, others spend 235 billion naira in 6 months. Okay. You can read all about that on page 19. Still on the Punch, talks about Doyin Abiola, media gurus reflection, or rather reflect on democracy soldiers' life. All right, flood crisis. FG predicts more devastation in 15 states. India buys Nigerian crude oil as Dangote imports U.S. oil. All right. EFCC arrests 93 suspects for internet fraud in Ogun. Federal government launches e-fiscal platform to crack down on tax evasion. Another UK-based Nigerian jailed 5 years for rape. Finally, Rivers LG poll umpire under fire amidst ADC APC attacks. All right, moving on from the Punch, let's check out Vanguard. Vanguard newspaper says sugar importation rises as local production falters. Sugarcane farmers lament neglect access to sugar refiners. All right, that's on a sad note on our agricultural sector. Okay, tariff slash. EERC moves to resolve Enugu power outage. Peter Obi has integrity. He'll keep his one-term promise, says NBF. All right. Obasanjo Library kicks as EFCC raids hotel and looming strike. Federal government to pay 7 months arrears of doctors and health workers. 2027, Niger Delta will support only Tinubu, said Otuaro, the PAP boss. Tax Reform Act will cripple operations in 48 hours, says the AON. And we have the Mr. and Mrs. Cartoon at the right-hand side of the newspaper. Moving away from Vanguard, let's check out Blueprint and see what Blueprint has to say this morning. On Blueprint newspaper, we have NIMET alerts on flood in Benue, Taraba, Damawa, Kebbi, Bauchi in next 3 days. Thunderstorm in FCT, Niger, Nasarawa, Kwara, Plateau. All right, 15 northern states have to be at alert as the NIMET has issued out flood alert warnings. Okay, on the news also, EFCC raid. Obasanjo Library threatens legal action, demands apology. All right, on business, First Bank champions innovations at 2025 Canada Africa FinTech Summit. TED Fund deployed over 100 billion naira to improve medical sciences, says Masari. Okay. Down below, we take a look at the headline, which says August 15 fuel distribution. Dangote commences receipt of 4,000 CNG powered trucks. Refinery expects 60 shiploads of trucks in 6 weeks. And on sports, it says Afro Basket, the Tigers unveil final squad off to Angola. Talking about our female basketball team, Nigeria, making us proud worldwide. Finally, let's take a look at the national economy. National economy talks about local production records less than 1% of annual vehicle imports. All right, Nigeria loses $363 million annually over EU ban on beans exports. Insurance stocks jumps 10% after Tinubu signs reform bill. All right, you may want to check out also easing trade restrictions, a pathway to Nigeria's economic revival. All right, that's all we'll take today on the national economy, but that's it on newspaper Inside Nigeria on Leadership TV. If you have any comment on any of the headlines we've spoken about, do well to follow us on our social media platforms, like and leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. I am Cynthia Onwado.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.